Hey, what's up? So, for those of you who don't know, I have a wife and she's pregnant and she's about to give birth to what will be the next little genius. And I can say that with confidence, not because I think of myself as a genius, I don't, nor my wife as a genius. I love her, but I don't see her as super genius or anything. But because we've done this with so many other families already and we've seen the results, and we can pretty much systematically uh, time it out as far as what the stages will be. And we know, okay, we've done this with so many other families. We're just going to do the same thing with our own family. And so we're really excited about that. I think a lot of people think of genius as some sort of genetic lottery in the past. And it pretty much was that way, right? It was just like something you couldn't control or had no idea how it was going to show up. But today, we know enough where that's not the case, you know, where we can actually create genius. What a lot of parents don't realize is just how much influence they have over their children and how much influence the environment has over how their children develops and uh, begins to express themselves as well, right? And so I think if you look back in your own childhood, your own life, you can probably recall, there were some things that my parents did that had a major impact on me. And if they would have done things differently, if they would have done things this way or that way, I may have turned out differently. Or if I was born in a different environment, that would have dramatically changed things for me as well. And, we can kind of look at just society at large and see that as well. If you're born into an environment with a lot of poverty, odds are you're likely going to remain in poverty. And the opposite is true as well. If you're born into an environment with a lot of wealth, odds are you're going to produce some wealth for yourself as well. You're probably not going to end up in the poverty neighborhoods, right? That's not to say that that can't happen, but generally speaking, that's the way it goes, right? So anyway, when we're looking at environment and your parents, that has a major impact on who you become as a person or who your child becomes as a person, how their parents are and the impact that they're having. Another thing that's really important to, let's say, developing a genius, and let's clearly define genius here. We're not talking about just some chess whiz or someone who's really good at math but can't hold a conversation. There are people that are genius in those ways, I suppose, where they have some exceptional talent and that's all they can do, right? And I think some people shy away from wanting their kids to be genius because they don't want them to be socially awkward in that way, right? And then the other reason is because people think that it just happens by pure luck. And if you weren't born with the genetics for it, you didn't see genius in yourself or in your partner, that is probably not going to happen. Well, that's not the main factors of creating genius in your own household. And to just clearly define genius, it's more so the ability to adapt effectively to situations we can't even possibly predict, right? And so a well-rounded genius, someone who's able to excel at all the necessary skills that one needs, right? But also so you're above average than the normal person. That's what above average is, right? But you're above those averages in all those necessary skills, and you're also able to be well-rounded. You're also able to have a conversation with somebody. You're able to do math effectively. You're able to read effectively. You're able to do all these sorts of things, right? And that's what we're talking about genius, where the child is actually prepared for this world. They're actually able to effectively direct their environment, right? And, direct it in a way that's actually best. Not just because, I can cut down all the trees around me, that makes me a genius. No, but hey, I see an effective use for the environment around me, whether it's the trees or the animals with the trees, and making sure that, hey, if I do cut down this tree, I know how it's affecting these animals, and I know that this is actually going to be best because this tree is actually rotting, or whatever the case is, right? So we're talking about creating a genius in the way that a child is actually effective. You could actually be effective, the things that you actually want to accomplish. And so it's a little bit different than maybe the mainstream idea of just being super academically smart. I'm not talking about that. That's cool and all, and maybe there's some use in some of those skills, but we're not talking about just being smart for the sake of doing school, let's say, right? Well, we know that we're going to create a genius who's able to do, math effectively, reading effectively, communicate effectively, and solve problems effectively. Really, that's what it comes down to. Problem solving effectively in a way that is supportive and works best for everyone involved, everyone who's impacted by the consequences or the effects of those decisions that are made. I mean, who doesn't want that, right? So anyway, that's what we're doing. And we're looking for other parents who want to do that also. We're looking for parents who don't want to just put their kids through the system, the same system that they went through. We're looking for parents who can see that the world could use some change, and we want that change to happen. Looking for parents who they want their kids to be effectively prepared for this world and to reach their best potential, right? And we're looking for those who are willing to do things a little differently. Not just, it's what I said, this is how we're gonna do it, and that's it. But hey, the way I was raised wasn't very effective, and I want those things to change, and I wanna make sure that my child is better well-rounded, they have the emotional support that they need, they're able to effectively communicate with others, they're able to problem solve, they're going to have a good life. And they're not going to be just some asshole that makes everybody else's life a living hell, right? That's the community that we're looking to create, because we don't just want this for ourselves. We've already been doing it with other parents, right? And that's how we're so confident that we can do it for ourselves. But we also want this for everyone who wants this. Obviously we can't force anybody to have a good life, right? But if it's something that somebody wants and they see that they can achieve it, we want to show them that, yeah, it's possible, it can be done, and we are already doing it, right? I think there are some key frameworks to keep in mind when talking about creating a genius, and those frameworks are, one, you have to drive that genius, meaning it's not just going to happen by chance. I mean, it can happen that way, but that's few and far between. That's like winning the lottery, essentially, and we all know that is not very likely. So that means that you have to create the environment for your children to actually develop as a genius. And there's a really famous story of this family that they understood intrinsically that genius was created and not just naturally born. And they wanted to test it out, and they tested it out in the field of chess. And they said, hey, we want our family or our children to be chess geniuses. And so what they did was they created the environment around them as they were having children to support every idea that the child should be good at chess. And they even homeschooled their children, which was very rare in their area where they were living, and surrounded them with chess books and different chess players and chess matches, and all they did, well, aside from learning their academics and things like that, was focus on chess. And as it turns out, all three of their children became very good at chess. One of them was beating adults by the time they were 4. One of them went on to be some chess grandmaster, like an international master. Another one was also really good at chess, beating many people, and I guess became like a chess teacher even. So we know that you can create the environment to develop genius. The other thing that's really important with this is, if you're doing that, you can't invite in the opposition, so to speak, right? So if you're telling your child that 2 + 2 is 4, and there's somebody else who has the idea that 2 + 2 could be 5. And they want to teach your child that you wouldn't invite that in, right? Because you're like, hey, you're just going to confuse the child. Let's not do that, right? I want them to have an actual understanding of 2 + 2 is 4, right? But for whatever reason, well, for convenience sake, a lot of parents turn towards devices like tablets and platforms like YouTube or YouTube Kids or whatever it is, and they invite in all these conflicting ideas towards actually developing your child to be a genius. And quite frankly, the more time that your child spends on a tablet or an iPhone or something like that, especially in their developing years, the more of their attention is focused on passive things where they don't have to develop really any sort of critical thinking or develop themselves to be creative in any sort of way. They're just sitting there and passively getting information. And that's not going to support them to be a genius. And then probably the most important thing, but the most challenging thing to get parents to understand is you have to also develop their understanding. And I can say this in a way that's really simple, but when I tend to say it very simply, it just goes over the heads of many parents and they think it's so simple, it can't be that simple, it must not work. And I can also explain it in a way that's like, this is how it actually practically works. But again, it goes over the heads of most people and they're like, I have no idea what you just said. It doesn't make sense. And then they don't take action on it. But it's as simple as developing your child's ability to understand is at its root, children are sort of like, let's say a supercomputer. Not exactly like a supercomputer in the way that we understand computers today, but they're very much like a supercomputer because they have some similarities. If your computer had files stored randomly on the computer and in hard to reach places, whenever you wanted to call up a program, it might take a while for it to find all the pieces for that program. And so it may just run really slow. Or it may not run at all. It may not run the program at all because it gives you an error message because it's taking too long to find that content. You ever had that where you're on your computer and you try to visit a website and then it gives you an error message that says, this site took too long to load, right? Or it may bring up the application, bring up that program that you're trying to run, but with missing pieces, right? And if that happens often enough, a child will recognize, oh my gosh, I am not running this program effectively. And they'll recognize that not only are they not running the program effectively, or they're not getting the result that's desired. And that will start them thinking that, oh, I can't understand things, or maybe I'm dumb, or I can't be, they're just some things that I don't get. Maybe I'm not cut out to be super smart or a genius or whatever, perform in these ways, right? But that can actually very simply be corrected if the responsible adults in their lives would direct them effectively so that they can not just understand, but recognize the world around them in reality and recognize its constituent parts, all the little pieces that make up the world around them, and organize that effectively. So instead of just having information just blasted all over the place in no particular order, if everything is organized effectively in their minds, then they can have easier access to that information or accurate recall, quicker recall, which will lead them to more confidence and more self-esteem because they'll be able to grasp that information when it's needed, right? And what that looks like in reality, you may have seen some videos that I've posted of a 26-month-old reading and having that confidence, and you just see it, when he's reading, he's just like really happy, and it's not something where the parents had to go through a lot of frustration or a lot of heartache or whatever. I don't know why there would be heartache, but you've seen where children seem like they're forced to read. Well, you don't have to do that, and you can still get the same results. In fact, where the child feels like it's natural, just as natural as playing to them, right? Or you may have seen, videos or stories that I've shared of other kids who are aware of their emotions, aware of, oh, right now I'm feeling anxiety and I need to correct that. I want to correct that. Or aware when the adults in their lives are using emotional manipulation and correcting them and saying, hey, that's not okay. I'm not going to participate with that at 5 years old. Or you may have seen some other videos that I posted, 6-year-olds able to do math in their heads that a lot of adults can't even do. Or even doing binary on their own, learning binary on their own, reading entire chapter books on their own in a day, and able to tell you after reading hundreds or even thousands of pages, able to tell you, oh, this is what I read today, and this was this character in the story, and this was the plot, and all those sorts of things. Actually able to understand what it is they're reading, not just passively going, and then the thing said this and that. We've seen kids do that, right? But we're talking about actually supporting your child to organize the information in their own minds so that they have an effective understanding of this world. And when that happens, then genius can occur, right? It can emerge, right? And so we're looking for parents who want to create that for their own children, because we want to be surrounded by a community of children who actually can understand the world around them and actually care about those around them as well, so that together we can create a much better lives for ourselves and everyone on this planet. If that's something that you are at all remotely interested in or resonate with at all, and you just want to get connected with that community, you want to be a part of that, send me a message that says community, and we'll definitely hook you up in the community with other parents that are doing just that. So you can see it firsthand and you can be a part of it too. You can create it for your own family. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one.